Hello and welcome to my channel. November 11th, Veterans Day, marks 9 years with my GTI. Let's talk about the past year. Welcome back and thanks for being here. My name is Scott, and I wish I was here to tell you about all the cool mods that I've done with my GTI, but I just haven't. You haven't seen a lot of car mods on this channel for quite a while. Ham radio mods, yes. Car mods, no, not so much. I did a lot of those relatively early in the car's life, and a lot of those videos are what brought you here. I started off with the stereo modifications, subwoofer systems, a little bit of light ham radio, nothing too offensive for the average car enthusiast. Turbo swap, intercooler, exhaust modifications, a little bit of wheel and tire, nothing too serious. All I did was swap out my factory wheels with the same wheel, just recolored. I still love the look. I'm the type of person who will buy a car, and as I've aged and my resources have increased, I've bought better cars. So I start off with what I think is a pretty good selection, build it into what I want, and build is a controversial word. Transform it. How about that? I transform it into what I want, and then I just enjoy it. I drive it and enjoy it and run it until it's worthless, until it just can't go anymore. So that's pretty much what I've done with this car and what I've been doing. And that's why you haven't seen a lot of car mods. The car is exactly how I like it. And I have just been enjoying the car. Now, ham radio mods, yes, I have been doing those because I'm still growing in the hobby, although I've been licensed as a ham for over 30 years. But I'm going to keep this focused on the car itself, not the radios. Although I'm not doing any more car mods, I did share with the viewers at the time that as the car ages, although I'm not doing mods to it, I would continue to keep you informed of things, issues with the car as it ages. And so here we are. I'm going to give you somebody just told me it was on one of my comments recently, silver alert. So silver alert for my GTI, which is ironic because the car is silver. So in 2025, well, let me first talk about the mileage. I've been known, particularly by Europeans, as somebody who drives a lot. A lot of, especially Europeans, would say, where do you drive your car so much? I think a lot of them still just don't understand how vast our country is. And for me to go to Hamcation, driving with, particularly with the Yagis on top of the car and everything, from here to Orlando, it's over 1,000 miles. I can't remember exactly how many miles it is. And so when I do stuff like that a lot, I rack up the miles, and I average for the first 8 years of the car's life, 30,000 miles, 33,000 miles actually per year. And that is nearly 50,000 kilometers every year for the first 8 years. Now, I haven't been traveling so much in 2025, and some of that is because the cost of travel has increased. Hotels have gone up, but that's happening in a lot of places. Hotel costs are going up. And I don't know, are those increased prices here to stay, or will things settle out after the market settles? For now, I'm keeping my car and my money closer to home. So I have not been driving very much, or as much, I should say. I still have been going to a few things and driving the car. Right now, the car has 256,000 miles on it and some change. When you subtract last year's odometer reading from that, that means that in 2025, I drove only 23,000 miles. And that's still a pretty healthy dose of driving, but not nearly what I usually do. So, and that's okay. I used to question whether or not I might reach the 300,000 mile mark by the time the car was 10 years old. And I don't wonder about that anymore. Now at my rate of driving, it's not going to make it. I'll probably have 300,000 miles on the car when the car turns 11. And this is assuming I drive 20 to 25,000 miles in 2026 and 2027. Who knows? Maybe I'll drive a little bit more. It's hard to say, but that's where I am as far as the mileage goes. And of course that mileage could go down if I have some mechanical problems, or it could go up if I make some repairs that give me some confidence to drive the car even more. But anyway, let's talk about those mechanical repairs or issues that maybe I had in 2025. I've already shared in a separate video the main mechanical problems that I had with the car, and that'd be namely a refrigerant leak, a very slow refrigerant leak, and a very slow oil seepage into the coolant reservoir. And I'm not going to bore you with all the specifics here. I have a separate video that covers that. Stick that up here in the corner here for you to go check out if you're interested. You might recall my warm start problem. Pretty sure that is a high pressure fuel pump that's misbehaving from time to time. And oddly enough, coincidentally, after replacing the compressor and the oil cooler rings, the gaskets, I didn't have that problem anymore. And I know the two are not connected, but it seemed to have just magically resolved itself. And I can't remember when I made those replacements. It's been a few months, I think. So I thought, wow, how cool that I don't have to deal with this anymore. But it has come back, not with a vengeance. It's just from time to time, if the conditions are just right, the car doesn't start when it's supposed to. I mean, it will start. It just doesn't start with the first press of my start button. So, but I know what the problem is, and I'll get around to replacing that high pressure fuel pump at some point. It's not a priority. It should be, but it's not. I do continue to watch my timing chain. I get asked that a lot. Have you replaced the timing chains yet? And the answer is still no. When I look at the timing information through OBD11, that is an app, by the way, that plugs in. So it's got a dongle that plugs into the OBD2 port, and the app is called OBD11. And I can read some measuring blocks, live data, and I am well within specs on that. It's allowed, the adaptation is allowed to be as wide or as big as plus or minus 5 degrees, and I'm still at minus 0.7. So I am well within the spec. A little bit of bouncing around with the specified versus actual values, but it's nothing terribly hair-raising. And I did a visual inspection of the, what would it be called? The tensioner adjuster. It's a little spring-loaded mechanism that puts tension on the chain itself and keeps it from getting too floppy in there. And that is still right in its mid-range. For a second there, I misread it, and I thought that it was fully extended, and therefore, yes, let's go ahead and replace all of this. So I'm not replacing it yet, but even though all of that reads fine, I still have to wonder how long will those plastic bits in there last? Because let's face it, the guides that the chain follows, they're all plastic. They're plastic guides and followers, and I don't hear any weird noises, but I think in 2026, I'm going to replace all of that just because, I'm getting nervous only because nothing's wrong, but can the car really be quite this perfect? So, yeah, I'll replace it next year. I'm also keeping an eye on my alternator. I get asked sometimes whether or not my charger for my lithium iron phosphate battery or LiFePO, some people say LiFePO battery, the charger, it will pull up to 50 amps. And the question that people ask me are, hey, is that overloading your alternator? And I'm going to say it's yes and no. Yes, when I'm charging my LiFePO battery, it does add load to the alternator, but no, because the alternator and the electrical system in the car are specified to include using things such as the ventilator, high beam headlights, fog lights, the air conditioner, defrosters, the mirror defrosters, seat heat. What else? There are other things in there that I can't even think of right now. The upper trim cars have the Fender audio system, so it's powering another amplifier. And I suspect that they rate the system, starting at the alternator, to account for the possibility that passengers would use all of them all at once. who really does that? But because the 150 amp alternator is sized to account for all of that, and I almost never do that. Well, not almost, I just never do, except for this morning when I tested it all to share with you in this video. Here, check out this little clip of my live test of all of it. All right, let me give you a quick demonstration of the load on the alternator. Right now I am idling, and you can see that the load on the alternator is 22, 25, well, I'm going to call it 22%. And this is how loads can add up. For example, if I were to turn on the headlights, there you see it jumps up to 29 to 30%. If I do the high beams, I didn't really seem to do much. I guess those bi-xenons are fairly efficient. Here's the driver's side seat warmer. And then if I add the passenger seat warmer on top of that, and maybe it's really cold enough out there to run the defrosters, you can see that that takes it up to 39%. I didn't try turning on the air conditioner. Let's see what it does, like I'm trying to defog windows. That didn't really do much. And what else? If I do the power windows real quick, I don't think that's going to do much. Small draw. But now let me turn on my charger to 50 amps. That'll take a second. You'll hear the engine bog down just a little bit when I do that. And it's not really bogging down, it's adjusting the idle. All right, there that went. So you saw it spike up to 74, and now it came back down to, what, 55 to 58. And this is at idle now. If I'm driving down the road with it picking up a little bit, there you go at 45. Now let me turn off all these additional accessories so I can show you how things change without the extra loads. And so now here I am with charging at 50 amps, and I'm back down to below 30%. Now if I let it go back to idle, there you go, 35%. So that's really not much more than running loads that the car usually has if I'm charging without running the loads. And I normally don't run all those extra loads. So as you can see, once everything is running, I think I showed you that it did spike up to 74 amps and then back down to about 58 amps. And that's with I didn't even think about it, but my ventilator was only set to 4. So I could have gone up 2 more clicks on the ventilator and pulled even more current. But realistically, with all of that stuff turned on, if I decide that I want to charge at 50 amps, I'm going to either turn the charge current down or turn the accessories down, depending on which I need more or less. I shared with you not too long ago that when the alternator gets hot during the summer months, it pulls that power back almost automatically, maybe because it just can't keep up. But instead of sending 50 amps to the back of the car, it only sends about 30 to 35 amps. And one of my viewers commented that probably the brushes in my alternator were worn out or getting worn, and that's a pretty good diagnostic. It's I think that's a very good possibility. But the fact that everything works when everything cools down, works fully, I should say, I'm not too worried about it right now. But I also learned that a lithium battery, although my battery says that it can accept a maximum charge rate of up to 100 amps, most battery people suggest charging at what's known as 0.2 C, the C being capacity. So because I have a 100 amp hour battery, then 0.2 C would be 20 amps. So what I've done is I set my charger to 30 amps. That way I've got 10 amps or so set aside for the things that the car is operating, being my radios and amplifiers, a refrigerator and things like that. And then whatever's left over gets put into the battery. So that can be anywhere from 18 to 24, 25 amps going into the battery. And that seems to work out pretty well. And that will also reduce the load on my alternator. So I think my compromise is going to help the alternator. But gosh, 256,000 miles on the factory, the original alternator, that's still pretty amazing. If it were to fail tomorrow, I would just say, hey, man, that thing did a great job. And I would just replace it with another one, maybe an alternator from a Golf R, because I think I've read or researched that those are 180 amp alternators. Now, because of my slower charging rate, if I have a busy weekend of ham radio, for example, at the September VHF contest, there were times when I was keying up my radios with the amplifiers on, and I was pulling over 50 amps at a time the off of the lithium battery. And after several hours, I found myself with a dead lithium battery. I just completely lost track of how much power I was pulling out of that thing. And so I went for a drive to my next operating position, and that brought the battery up to about 40%. And then I operated a little bit more. And then when I got home, it would have been nice to be able to plug the car in overnight, but I didn't. But now I can. I have since added an AC to DC charger inside the car, and then what's known as a NOCO GCP1E. It is basically a receptacle that accepts an extension cord plugged into it and then allows me to get AC power into the car. These things are very popular on teardrop campers or maybe homemade trailer conversions and things like that. And so now I have one on my car. And I have used it. Sometimes I want to condition the battery, top off or top balance the cells or whatever. And so, yeah, a trickle charger is really nice. And then after a long day of contesting, when I know I got to go right back out the next day, being able to charge the battery is a good thing. Now, I am still fiddling around with some ham radio projects. The most recent change would be to the tower on the roof. I have done internal damage to another Yakima rack, and nothing broke, nothing fell off the car. It's just, I remove my rack every year for an inspection, and I found internal bending. So just things that were not quite the way they're supposed to be. And so I took them out of service before they became a problem. And so now I've gone back to my original roof rack, which is by Rhino Rack. And I also outfitted the roof with a lighter tower setup. I'm pretty hopeful that it'll last longer or be better for the car. And I've also added motorized vertical antenna mounts, and those have been kind of fun. Details about all of that stuff up here. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here on that here in this video. So with all of this done, my ham radio stuff, these projects, they're at a little bit of a standstill. There is some new equipment out there that I'd like to try if money was no object. Again, it's almost like buying the cars. I got all my radio equipment. I'm happy with it, and I'm just going to enjoy it and roll with it. So that's sort of the plan for now. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, I'm going to do my best to keep you informed of any problems that might arise with my GTI. After all, I did say years ago that this channel would transition from car mods, mod, to now I'm enjoying the car, and then I will share with you geriatric GTI content as the car transitions from full of life to maintenance mode to end of life. Hopefully the car still has plenty of life left in it. I'll let you know. Stick around, continue to watch, and maybe learn with me. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time. Take care.